Welcome to the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show, created and hosted by Scott Knudsen, to explore the crossroads of horses and the business world. On today's show, Scott visits with Piper Klumm, the owner and publisher of The Plaid Horse. Later on, Scott talks with author, journalist, and media consultant Elizabeth McCall. Now, here's your host, Scott Knudsen.
I'm your host, Scott Knudsen, with a very special guest. She's an educator, she's an entrepreneur, and she has a PhD in chemistry. Piper Klumm. Piper, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you're very busy. So we're going to try and cover as much as we can in our short amount of time today. So what kind of got you into the horse world and specifically into the hunter jumper world?
I loved horses from the very beginning. I come from a non-horse family. My mom opened up the phone book and found a barn in the Yellow Pages when I was growing up. I grew up on the East Coast, and it was a very English riding community. I don't think I knew anyone riding Western growing up. And so that influenced that. And I did pony club, and I think that was such a great experience because I got to do everything. I got to do dressage. I got to do 3-day eventing and all different things, but kind of antithetical to my personality. I found my love in the hunter ring because I think it is such a challenge. I'm not really type A in many other things. I'm kind of like, let's make a mess type B person who's creative and not organized. But the hunters are just such a challenge because it's all about perfection and beauty. Absolutely. And organization, and I will do this my whole life and never achieve it, and that's really interesting to me.
That's so awesome. I'm already off topic, but it's so cool because people watching or listening today, they might not have a horse or don't even know where to start. You just jumped in, found a barn, went to one of the hardest competitive classes there is.
Yep. And I keep at it all the time because with the horses, like you think you have one thing figured out, they find something else to
absolutely to
challenge you with.
That's so awesome. That's such a great story, that you found your way into the industry. And that's an inspiration to so many people that want to be in the industry. And now they maybe have heard from someone that can. So PhD, so you have a PhD in chemistry. So did you find chemistry or did chemistry find you?
A little bit of both. I actually took a break from riding. I didn't see a pathway for myself, and I worked really hard, and I was a working student, and I was around, immeasurable wealth as a teenager. And it's hard to handle all that stuff sometimes. And right. We all know we have to be in the sport for the right reasons and for the horses. And I got to a point where, I didn't see how to achieve that for myself. And then I had a lot of pressures for traditional education. Both my parents are professors. They supported me, but they never really understood the horse thing. They didn't see how that could translate into a career. And so that's something I'm really passionate now, is like showing people real jobs and real careers and real ways to be part of this sport that are attainable for people. So I took a break in college and grad school. Collegiate riding wasn't what it is now. I think the opportunity that has come up since I was that age would have changed my life, between the emerging athletes program. Like, we have so much stuff. And then with social media, you have access to knowledge, but I didn't really see how to get the knowledge that I didn't have. And, I didn't see that if I put the years in, it would have been there for me. Mm-hmm. And that's also something I really want to counsel young people about, is that it is there for you, and you do have to put the years in, but it can be there for you. And I just didn't see that at that age. So I took a break and I really focused on school. And all the same things that make you a great horse person make you excel academically. Absolutely. That discipline. I never procrastinated. I would look around and like, no, you can't procrastinate at the barn if you don't get your stuff done.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You can't dawdle around the barn. And when you apply that to life skills with other people who, aren't as good at just kind of rallying themselves and getting moving, these are all skills that we use all the time in the real world, and the horses are very unforgiving. And when you apply that somewhere else, it's not hard to excel academically.
Right. It applies to different businesses for sure, but it's just getting something done and doing the steps every single time, and you can't skip a step, whether you're training a horse or you're doing something else in the business world. So that's so cool.
And science is the same way, and going out there and forging with the unknown, doing research and trying to get peer-reviewed publications. Like a lot of it's the same puzzle process as making up a young horse and going to the barn.
That's so cool, the correlation there. That's so awesome. So you teach 3 classes, is that correct? At Clarkson?
Yep.
So if somebody is watching this, they're like, man, I really want to get in the industry. I really want to learn from Piper. How can I do it? So how would they find you? And let's talk a little bit about your classes if you can.
Yeah. So the Plaid Horse, I'm the publisher of the print magazine, and we do a weekly podcast. So we have a lot going on there. And for many years, I supervised interns. It was always a big part for me giving back, and all of these things that we talked about, really making people see how they can be part of the industry and how they can make it work for themselves. And so over time, I started to miss teaching, doing the Plaid Horse all the time. And then with the interns, I got to a point where honestly, I really wanted to assign them to do the reading. I would give them readings and stuff.
Oh man.
I wanted them to, and I get it. Like, school always comes first, and these kids are so burning the candles at both ends, and they're working so hard and so much on their plate, and like, what gets cut? Well, the reading you're doing for fun. I get it. And I thought, if we can legitimize what they're doing into an actual class, it helps legitimize what they're doing into an actual career. So I started working with Clarkson, and they have a great entrepreneurship program, and they've been really open to it. I came with this grand idea, and they've never had any classes in their history that are just open to everyone. And I said, that's a deal breaker for me. These have got to be open to assistant trainers or parents. We get a lot of parents sign up. We have students in high school, a couple talented middle schoolers, and really like start this process at a different stage. And of course, we have current college students and transfer students, students getting transfer credit, but really making it open to everyone, legitimate, hard, valuable college courses, and addressing all the things that I see real world in the industry. And like, I buy and sell horses. I have a lease business for pony hunters. Like, I am out there, aside from current times, I typically go to 50 horse shows a year of all different levels. I'm out there doing it. And it's hard because academia respects people with academic credentials, and there are very few horse people with academic credentials. Right. And that gap is hard to bridge, explaining to academics why they should respect horse people that do not have credentials that they respect. And so I really saw this as a way that we can validate all of the hard work so many young people do at the barn, but it's hard to convey that on a college application. It's hard to get people who have a certain value system. Academics have a very specific value system, putting it in their language so that they can value the entire investment that people are making in horses. I think, it's one step towards bridging that gap.
Absolutely. It's a big step. And I think it can be bridged because I know the universities want to educate, and people that are out there in the field can help do that. And then you have 2 people of knowledge helping that one person. It just makes sense.
Yep.
It is so important for not only our industry, but just education in general. That's where I start getting excited, because I love people that want to learn and then progress their careers. And I think by doing what you're doing is so important, and using, not working with interns, but also just going to the educational side.
Yep. And I still, I have open office hours that people can schedule time to meet with me. I really believe that people starting businesses and they have questions. We deal so much in kind of coded language in the horse industry, and there's stuff that everyone knows ostensibly, but there's no way to find that information. And there's so much stuff that I know that I'm not I don't know enough to write an article, but I know,
Right.
And so, I really think office hours, class, all of this stuff are valuable times to share that knowledge that I'm happy to share, but, it's not going to withstand to, a lawyer
Right.
read or going up on the website.
Well, it's so good for somebody to be able to go into your office or call you or take a class, and you're out there doing it and still apply to the college. That's wonderful that they're doing that. And our industry is so huge, but people don't know how to get in. And like you, they looked in the yellow pages. There's ways to get in, and they might take your class. That might be the toe in the water, so to speak, to get them to get into the industry.
Absolutely. And when I was growing up, I subscribed to the Chronicle and Practical Horseman and stuff, but it never occurred to me how the magazines got put together. And that's such a, but it never occurred to me that someone is doing every step of this magazine process. And I think that we obsess over who's riding or who's, training, but we don't always show people all the different careers and options of how many vendors and course designers and stewards and braiders and grooms and how many people are at the horse show.
It's an incredible feat. It's not just a trainer, like you say. It's the photographers, and there's so many ways to get into the industry and be successful. And doing the classes with you and talking to other people that are successful in the industry, that's the way to get in and be successful for sure. So Piper, so tell us a little bit more. So we're talking about getting people into the industry, and I love that. And I love that. I know that's one of your passions, is to bring people into the industry and educate them and help them find their way. So where do you find people that are coming into the industry? Is it just different avenues, different people?
Yeah, I think this is a scary point for our industry. I think the older generation got their start at pony rides and, driving by the barn and having barns and horses exist in daily life a little bit more, maybe knowing someone who rides. We're a very siloed community right now. Land prices, there's so many factors have driven barns further and further away from cities. Most people live in cities,
Right.
This is a challenge. Most people are not going by a horse farm on their way to school or work and might get interested.
Right.
There are fewer and fewer pony rides and riding academies and lesson barns and fewer places starting people. So I think that is something scary that we all need to be cognizant of. One of the things that I think also, so many people quit riding. I quit riding. I didn't see where things were going. I came back. Some people come back, some people don't. But really talking to people, having that support group and making people feel welcome has been huge. And I've talked to so many people over the years that we do a ton of articles on everyone is welcome, like no matter what you look like.
Those are great.
You have going on. And so many people have come up to me over the years of, I was afraid to come back to riding, but your communities and stuff made me feel really supported to come back. And you do a quick back of the envelope calculation, and when someone's not riding at all, they're not buying anything. They're not buying helmets. They're not buying saddles and bridles and breeches and all this stuff. And even the occasional rider is buying all the gear. The person who gets swept back up in it, it's, as we all know, easy to spend a fortune in this sport.
Absolutely, it is.
And that sustains everyone. It sustains the trainers and the horse shows and the vets and the farriers and the blacksmiths, and every aspect of our sport is sustained by every person who comes back in. So I think really we can all go out of our way to make everyone feel welcome in this sport. I think we are traditionally bad at that as horse people.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of unwelcoming tendencies that I think are bred in the competition environment that are just not necessary. We're all fighting our own battles. Our biggest competitor is ourselves. It's each other is not the competition here. So I think keeping people in the sport is huge, and then welcoming people as you can, as you see opportunities. If you're at work and you can invite your work colleagues or your school friends or anybody out to the barn, I encourage everyone to come out to the barn. People I can get out to the barn, I encourage everyone to go for a pony ride. I'm really all about, getting people in whatever safe vehicle as involved as they can. Because I found that a lot of people just need that one ride or one or two rides. And they're like, oh, this is, and that's the equivalent of the pony ride from the last generation. But like, it doesn't matter if you give a pony ride to a 50-year-old woman and she starts riding, like that's amazing for the sport.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And like my mom has never ridden and she always kind of wanted to. And I never really had the right horse and stuff for her. So she actually came out to the barn in April, and my horse is at an age and a maturity level that he was ready for that. And she's 74 and she rode him around at the walk.
Oh, that's awesome.
And she's like, I want a horse show. There's one horse show that has an adult walk class. And she's like, I want to do it.
That is great.
You think about how much horses give all of us. I want everyone to have that. And we should all want everyone to have that. And how can we get them more into our lives? And even if they're not riding, can you get people out to the barn to groom or be around horses or, pet them? I think it's we all want to make grand things. And I think if everyone could do a simple gesture, it would make like a huge difference in our sport.
It really will. We have people that come out to the house. They don't want to ride at all, but they want to take pictures or they want like being around it, and that's great. Just come on and do it and encourage them. And who knows, they might show up at a show and enjoy it and do more, so it's so important.
I had the opportunity to ride with Brianna Noble, who's the Oakland cowgirl, and she took me into Oakland riding. And so we had the horse trailer. We had the horse trailer parked on the side of the street and unloaded the horses in this neighborhood. And people came out of their homes in the neighborhood and wanted to pet them. And just like you said, take pictures with the horses. Some of them were a little afraid, because they were so big, and then kind of got over that and took pictures. And to be part of the community is amazing. And things like that, I think are so cool. And people trying to get the horses where the people are, because cities are where people, predominantly live in this country. And so, you bring them out into Muhammad at some level.
Absolutely, you do. Absolutely. That's really cool. That had to be a cool experience.
It was unbelievable. In the Bay Area there, we rode up on the ridges and the hills and looked over the whole San Francisco Bay, and it was unreal. Oh,
beautiful. Beautiful. So the Plaid horse, let's talk about the Plaid horse. So it's a podcast, you have your magazine, your classes, go Plaid horse /class. So can you tell us a little bit about it and what it encompasses?
Yep. So the Plaid horse existed before I bought it. I bought it it was established in 2003 and I bought it in 2014. I didn't know what I was doing at all. I jumped in. The day I bought it, I called my parents and my dad was like, you realize print is dying, right?
Oh no.
And I was like, and he's not wrong on the general sense, and the general trend since then. But I started, so when I finished my PhD, I was really burned out, and I decided that I was going to do something to not be burned out. And everyone asked me what I wanted to do. And I hadn't even been to a horse show in a while, but I was like, I'm going to go to Thermal for the entire winter circuit and not do anything. And because I had been to pieces of circuits in the past, but I knew there was something that you're missing by just not seeing the whole thing from start to finish. And I just wanted to see it. And everyone thought I was crazy. And my then boyfriend, now husband, was like, sure, whatever. I was like, I'll see you in 8 weeks. Bye. And so I rented a little place and I went down there. And by the end of the first week, I was bored to tears. I'd never really lived on the West Coast. I didn't know anyone. And, I was like, watch the horse show. But, again, when it's not personal, it's a totally different experience. So
Right.
And I had no like purpose. And I happened to be on Facebook, and someone posted like that one of the publications was looking for someone to cover the Grand Prix. And I'd never done any journalism like that, but I was like, well, I can do that. Why not? And it was a complete light bulb moment when I talked to the Grand Prix riders, because I'd been looking for this knowledge and this education my whole life. And all these people were like, oh my God, annoying girl, please leave me alone. And instead it was like, oh, of course I want to talk to you about why I did 5 strides instead of 6 strides in that line. Like, of course I want to talk to the press. And I was like, oh, this is education. Like, other people are viewing this as something else, but like my education lens, I was like, this is how we bring education to the people. Social media was just getting started. And I started working with other people and quickly found that I don't, as with most things in my life, I'm not great at working with other people because I have my own ideas on how things should be.
Right.
And I saw something and I couldn't totally explain it to other people. And even when I could explain it, I couldn't get it across to other people. And so other people in the industry kept saying social media is just a fad, like, little girl, you don't know anything about marketing. And on paper, I didn't. I'm coming from my chemistry PhD, and I had no way of knowing what social media was or wasn't, but right. I saw this as an educational place. So as I did that more, I figured that, okay, I need my own thing, whatever that means, like, but I can't, I have my own ideas and my own vision and how I want to handle this. Other people don't fit in great with that. And so I also like looked like I was 12. So I was like, I need something that has a little longevity behind it. Otherwise I'm really going to struggle.
Makes sense.
So I started calling around and, for websites, magazines, all kinds of things. I was mostly looking for a website, and the woman who owned the Plaid horse, answered her phone. I called around and asked who owned it. Someone gave me her phone number. I cold called her. And I didn't read anything into it at all when I was like, would you sell it? And she was like, yeah, yes.
I love that about you so much, that you just go for it and you find your way.
And it was so fast. I want to say that, like, from the initial call to due diligence being done was like 5 or 6 weeks. Like,
wow, that's quick.
I had no idea. Like, and then I owned a magazine and I had like 5 weeks to put out an issue, and I had no idea what I was doing.
Oh my goodness.
So on the business side of things, I bought the magazine with a mortgage from the previous owner. So I made a small down payment, and then I paid monthly payments until she was completely paid off. And I interject that to say that this stuff is possible. And I knew that that was possible with her because I asked her. I said, this is what I have to put down right now. But I'm happy to work with the price that you want to work with overall. How do we make this work for both of us? And she was amenable to that. And some people would be, and some people wouldn't be, and that's fair. So then I have this magazine, and I just had to figure it all out. And everything was so hard because I didn't know what I was doing. I tried not to change too much because the magazine wasn't losing money, and I knew that I could easily lose money. It was back on newspaper print. There were a lot of it was black and white, and everyone was like, make it glossy, go color. And I was like, no, we're figuring out how every aspect of this works before we're changing things. So it was a little slow going in the beginning, and slowly over time we built the websites and the social medias and all of our educational platforms. We published books. We published the first 3 of my Show Strides book series with Rennie Dyball. And those are for young equestrians. And again, they're fun fiction reads for middle grade readers, but they're also based on my values. There's no mean girl. We're not bullying any one girl because she's rich or because she's poor or she's different. Right. It's all about how hard this sport is and working through that, as we all do. So it's turned into so many great things. We have a nice team now that's managing other people did not come naturally to me. That took me a long time to get the right team in together. I realized that I had my own business because I didn't want anyone to tell me what to do, but I also had no interest in telling other people what to do.
Funny how that works.
So that's been like a very, very acquired non-native skill for me. And I'm like, just do your job. Like, I don't know.
But it works. It is a great magazine. Even if you're in other industries within the horse world, you can still read it and pick up tips and see attitudes. And I love it. I was on there yesterday or today, yesterday reading it and looking at different stories. And some of it just flows to other parts of the industry. And but it's really well done for sure.
Thank you. Sure. And we believe horses are universal and everyone's welcome and will find their place in the industry, and wherever that place is for you. That's what's important. And the classes are the same thing. It's not about this is right or this is wrong. These are the options, and you pick what makes the most sense for your life and your family and your circumstances.
This was so great. It's so great. That's why I have so much passion about our industry, because it is so big. You can find your way if you really want to find your way. And there are people like you out there and that want to help them do that. So that's so great. So let's talk about another entrepreneur vision, lease ponies. Yeah, I thought this was so cool. Do you mind just talking a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. So my parents are both business professors. And while they didn't understand the horse thing, they thought that I should learn something about this. And so before I got my first pony, I had to give them a business presentation of how the pony was going to work financially and all that stuff. And my parents, being non-horse parents, got me an unbroke 2-year-old.
Oh my goodness.
And so that was like kind of the most rough part of the plan. Yeah. But I made a whole presentation and a portfolio. I kept track of every expense, mileage to the barn, every blanket, every shoe, everything. And then my parents completely let me decide what was going on, which is really cool because I see so many young people that have helicopter parents, and my parents let me choose like what barn I rode at, and a lot of the schedule and the planning and the horse shows and that kind of stuff. And so I made this pony up over like years, this none of these steps should take this long, but like everything took me like a year.
Put some time and thought into it.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing, but I figured, if I wanted it, so if I spent enough time in it, that we'd figure it out, and we did. And so she started going to shows. I showed her in the breeding classes, and then, I was the first one to ride her, and first jump, first everything, and got her up to the green ponies. And then my parents let me do whatever I want, and I started leasing her out, and leasing wasn't really a big thing back then. And I looked at it of like the back of the envelope is ponies leased for 1/3 of their value a year. I was like, well, in 3 years, I could still own her and have the money. Leasing is a lot more complicated than that. We learned, so many things like, you want them with a great trainer and in great care, of course. But, on our first lease, 2 weeks into the lease, the people got kicked out of the barn.
Oh, no.
And didn't tell us. And then we didn't, again, it wasn't in writing. It wasn't in the contract that they had to approve the next barn. All these things you learn along the way that you'll never make that mistake again.
Sure.
So, it was a little bump and go in the beginning. And then she started being a really good pony and getting a reputation, and continuing to get leases. And I actually still own her to this day.
Very cool.
And she kind of goes around as people need her. She's at a lovely barn right now, where unfortunately they had a barn fire and lost a lot of their animals. And so she's there, hanging out and making people smile and get helping them put their business back together. I think she is 23 this year.
So she's a therapy horse as well.
Yep. Very and cool. She's always been a therapy horse for me too.
Awesome.
My mom was in the World Trade Center on September 11th.
Oh, wow.
So she was there with me the whole time, when we were waiting to hear and all that kind of stuff. So she's really special. And then as I got through grad school, I was like, horses make you stupid. I was like, oh, I can do this again. I'm such a genius. So I decided to get another lease pony. And I learned a lot really quickly. And I ended up getting a few more. And again, it was touch and go in the beginning. I mean, I think there are many moments it could have sunk us, but somehow held on and slowly built something up. And at times I've had as many as 16 or 17 ponies right now. The market's pretty strong and I don't have as many, but it's been great to be out there and be part of the community and what people are looking for and how that all shifts over time and being part of the young animals. And one of the things I think is really cool is I've bred a couple here and everyone tells me, oh, you need to buy them in Europe. You can't afford to do it here. And we figured out ways, my business partner in the ponies, Emily Ellick, and I, and she is the trainer and she does all the hard pony stuff, but together we've strategized ways to bring the pony market all the way to fruition in the US, which I think is awesome. Because when you're breeding here, you're supporting everyone. You are supporting the vets, you are supporting the farriers, you're growing your people when they're in the US their whole lives.
Absolutely. That's so cool that you do that. And what you said about the therapy horse too, I think that's another area that we could really, as an industry, do better in. There's so many families that are going through something that's not great, but there's a horse out there that would be perfect for them to make them kind of get away for 5 or 10 minutes or an hour a day, just enjoy that horse.
Absolutely. I think people get so wrapped up in themselves and the people around them. And, it's sometimes the people around you are so much more exhausting than you are to yourself. And the horses just make you stop. You can't play on your phone. You can't, you have to, I think it comes back to that procrastinating part. Like you have to go in and get stuff done at the barn. They need something too. And it's just a completely different, relationship. And I think so many people feel unable to stop in today's world, and the horses kind of force them to get off the screen and live with themselves a little bit.
I think it's so great. It's medicine for me. They force you to focus on them, but once you do it just for a minute, then you don't want to stop. It's just addicting, so that's wonderful. So this is so great, and I hate to cut it, but I know we're running out of time. But so how can people find you as far as the classes or the lease ponies or the Plaid horse itself?
You can find the Plaid horse at theplaidhorse.com. All the college stuff launches off of theplaidhorse.com/college. So it's really easy to find there. And you can find the ponies in most issues of the magazine.
That's awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. Scott will be right back with Elizabeth McCall.
I'm your host, Scott Knutson. Little bit different show today, and we have a very special guest. Our guest is Elizabeth McCall, which I've known for many years, and so excited to have Elizabeth on the show. She's a writer. She's written her own book. She wrote for the LA Times, Hollywood Reporter, and most recently Cowboy and Indians magazine. Almost said Cowboy Entrepreneur, but Cowboy and Indian magazine. And I'm so glad she's here. Also, we're colleagues, and she's based in Los Angeles. Elizabeth, thank you for being on the show today.
Oh, it's a treat, Scott. I'm glad to see you there back in the studio, especially after the last few weeks.
Absolutely. It's a good spot to be for sure. I thank you so much. So what we're going to do today is something a little bit different. I'm going to hand over the reins to Elizabeth. She's going to ask me some questions. In case you haven't heard, we had a disaster in Texas, a winter disaster, and it was the first time in 75 to 80 years, they say, that's happened. So We just want to answer some questions and hopefully have some entertainment as well. So Elizabeth, take the show away.
Oh, right. Well, Scott, I was following the weather there, and you knew it was coming. I mean, for anybody that doesn't know, Scott's got the Lightning K Ranch there in the hill country of Texas, and he's fifth generation Texan. So it's no surprise when weather's coming. He gets ready for it. And, we were talking about it a little bit. We had a show actually scheduled he was supposed to do, which I set up a lot of those. And he got in touch with me the day before, and he said, I don't know, I hate to cancel, but our internet's going in and out. And I said, let's change it. Well, things started going from there, and I started following the weather from here in LA. It was daunting. Although, I've come to know Scott well enough that if somebody's going to get through something, he's resourceful. I mean, this is the guy that got hit in the head with lightning and out of his hand, and relearned to read and write, among other things. And so I really, I thought if anybody's going to make it through, certainly, as the reports kept coming in and the dramatic things on television, I was really assured that you would. However, one day then I got a photograph from you with your coffee maker outside on a plastic bucket, hooked up to a generator with snow around it. And I thought, well, wouldn't you know, he likes his coffee. But things changed from there, didn't they?
They really did. And that was within the first couple of days when we started getting really short of water, no more coffee, and that was just a comfort to kind of warm up. And by, the 5th through the 8th day, there was no coffee. It was just strictly water the horses. That's what we were concerned with.
The first time you sent me a couple of texts here and there, and, we're doing okay, or, we don't have this or that. But when we actually talked last week and you were saying, well, we were in survival mode, but then we started talking about some details. I said, what does that mean? Everybody's got, they're in survival mode, but really, what does that mean when you're in that kind of situation? You were totally cut off. Right?
Absolutely. We were prepared, we thought, we were prepared for a normal winter storm.
Which means what? What did you have ready?
Yeah, so, we had the firewood, we had the water, we had, extra feed and hay for the horses. Everybody, from the front gate to the back fence was covered. We had extra. And, but this was a storm like no storm in almost a century. And when it came in, we knew it was going to be bad. We didn't know how bad. And, when it came in, we were okay the first couple of days. We knew it was going south really quick. It was getting really bad. And my wife and I made a decision to, our daughter was here with us and she was helping us. And we really wanted her not to experience the mental part of it because we knew it was going to be bad. We didn't know what was going to happen. So we made it to town. We had to cross a power line in front of our gate. There was a power line that did drop.
Tell them about that.
So we were headed out, and my daughter wanted to stay. She's as tough as nails, but
16, right? 16.
She's 16 and beautiful and been a ranch. I mean, straight cowgirl. But we just thought that would be better for her mentally. Plus, if she's in town, she can help some other people in town, which she did. She went to other homes and helped them. But as we're headed out the gate, there was a power line that dropped right in front of our gate into the ground. And I knew it was neutralized because it was flush. It was ground. It was tired.
How do you know it's neutral? How did you know?
Because it was grounded. It was touching ground. So it was grounded. Oh. So I knew I could drive over with my rubber tires on the truck. But I wanted to make sure, since I had my wife and daughter, so we got some pictures. I was able to send them. This is day 2 before it got really bad. And they said it was a neutral line. So we were safe. So I drove over it and we made it to town. I took my daughter to a place in town, and that night they had to move because their power went out. But we made it back to the ranch, and then right after that, it really got hairy for the next 6 days, and we were trapped on the ranch. No electricity, no water because we're on a well. Cell phones went out. So it was pretty much survival. And we have a couple of friends that work for the volunteer fire department. They didn't hear from us after a few days, and they came to check, and we were able to run our mule up to the front gate, and we cut off a barrel top with a chainsaw and used the water hose from the fire truck to use that to water the horses. And the fire departments were overrun. One of the fire departments out here, volunteer fire, they had 200 calls in 8 days.
And this is what town is this? Or-
That was Willow City Fire Department. And then Willow City.
Okay.
And then there was Stonewall and Dawson. Just all these fire departments were just going at it, just trying to help people. And they called me and said, would you go do a wellness ranch check on this place? We haven't seen them. Well, I was headed out. This was day 3. And that's when our next electric pole busted. And the live electric line dropped in front of the gate. When it did, it lifted the other one. So we had two electrical lines and bumper high. So it raised it. So I couldn't get out. And we were trapped. And, you got family you're concerned about. You have friends you're concerned about. Our daughter, it was just my wife and I. And after about the 3rd day, we were on the defensive the whole time. And Mother Nature was on the offensive, and she was giving it to us pretty hard. And, my wife and I, we looked at each other and said, we're either going to live or die. And there was unfortunately some deaths. People died, livestock died, really close to us. And we just flipped the script. We were like, we're going to be on the offensive. So in the morning, we'd wake up, and this is what we're going to do to live today and take care of our ranch. And at night, before dark, before all the candles came out, we made a decision on what we're going to do for that night to get through it. And we wanted to be ahead of Mother Nature no matter what it brought to us.
So what did that mean? You were telling me that you were up, you're setting alarms at night?
Yeah, we set the alarm all night for 1 hour and 15 minutes. That was one of our plans was we would put a log on the fire and we would go down to the barn and we would end up walking because we wanted to save the gas on the mule. And we walk down there, which is half a mile. And we would
half a mile each way?
Yeah, and we'd hay all the horses, hay the goat, check on the chicken, pig, everything. We were checking them. Because we wanted to keep them engaged. We didn't want them to lay down and be too cold. Also, it was a great way to monitor the hay output, the grain output. So we give them a little bit, a lot, as opposed to a lot, and let them, So we kept them engaged. We managed our feed output, and that seemed to work. And we didn't lose any livestock. We were really blessed there. And it kept us engaged. And by day 5, 6, 7, and 8, all the firewood we had stored up, even the ones we had cut, had ice on it, 2 inches or so. My wife would be using a hammer to knock the ice off. And then we'd put on the
firewood?
Yeah, on the firewood. And then we would put it in the living room because in our house was 26 degrees. The wind chill outside was negative 15. And for people up north, that's just a normal winter. But down here, we're just not built that way as far as our barns and our houses and our infrastructure. So we would put the logs on the fire and it would kind of smoke, but it was better than not having any heat. And we just worked together as a team.
So what were you doing for food? I mean, you told me the wet wipes froze?
Oh yeah, the wet wipes froze in the living room, and that was just terrible. And, for food, we had some things here, but we really couldn't cook because we didn't want to waste our propane, and that was about all we had. We did have a water source. We would boil the water on our propane stove, sanitize it best we could.
This was from where, the pool?
Yes, from the pool. And so we were boiling that water, and that was some of our water. My wife was inventive, and she said, I can make toast over the campfire. And then she figured out a way to make popcorn on the propane, on the propane stove. So we were just being creative. We had to eat too. So we were being creative on ways, what we could do. We didn't want to mess up a lot of dishes because we couldn't clean them. So we just had to be really inventive and thank goodness I have a great partner, strong, and, because we just relied on each other. The limbs were so heavy, we trimmed the limbs around our house, around our barn, but they were so heavy they were just dropping. And if you can imagine 100 milk jugs full on a limb, it's just going to push it down. So we would rope the limbs around the house or around the fence line, and we would shake it. My wife would climb up on the ladder while I was roping, and we were knocking ice off.
Roping? Like?
Yeah, rope the limbs because they were so cold, and I would shake it so the ice would hopefully pop off and come back up. And if it wouldn't, we'd just cut that limb with a chainsaw. And it seemed to work, you know, because we were afraid if these limbs fall on our house, we're really not going to be warm. It's going to break a window or break a corner of the roof off, and we didn't want to take that chance. We did lose some fencing. Some horses got scratched up, but they're healing up now, so that's great. And you know, there was a lot of neighbors that lost livestock just due to the limbs falling on them. It was so heavy, and some, you know, it unfortunately hurt some livestock.
Yeah, you sent me some photos. So you could icicles. You could even see them in the photos from a phone of the icicles coming off a wire or a line, and then the trees. And what'd you tell me? It's about 3/4 of your trees were damaged on the property.
Yeah, about almost 85 and 90% are damaged or broken in half, just from either the wind or the weight of the ice and snow. So lots of cleaning up to do in the pasture, and you know, what we're going to do is spin it positive, and we were going to lift some of these trees anyway, and it's going to look good once we get it all cleaned up. And you know, it's kind of like right now the limbs are brown, the leaves are brown, and it's kind of like seeing a field that's been burned, except instead of fire it was freezer burn, and that's what it looks like. So you know, I was making a joke with my wife yesterday and a couple of guys that ride out here that we probably won't ever have to duck under a limb for a long time.
Good one. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, it seems incredible, I think, for people that live in so many parts of the country, even the world, to really, you know, and I appreciate you being so open about this, because it's one thing when somebody goes, oh, you know, we had to fight for survival, but when you really share the details of what that means, it adds another dimension. I mean, even just now, before we started talking, you were telling me, you know, you're in the process of cleaning up some of these broken things, and you said you've got a pole saw. Some of these things I've never heard of. Tell me.
Yeah, we have got pole saws that are 25, 30 feet tall. We're going to clean some of the top trees because there's still limbs that are dead that are hanging at the top of these trees. They just haven't fell yet. And I don't want an animal or family member or friend to be underneath it when it does. So we got some pole saws. We got some more chainsaws coming out. And
but for anybody that doesn't know what a pole saw is, just describe it a little more.
You can extend it up to about 30 feet. They're really long, and it looks like a chainsaw on the end of a 30-foot pole, and you got the trigger on your hand. So it's kind of a cool feeling, to tell you the truth. You know,
is it like a fishing rod or something?
It's a lot more sturdy, and it's heavy, and you just go up there and you can clean way up in that tree. So.
But you're on the ground, right? When you're
on the ground, yeah.
And you have to hang on to this thing and not let it get loose.
Yeah, hold it up, don't drop it, and cut. And we got chainsaws, and we have fence building equipment, and the tractor and the mule are out. You know, so we're just cleaning up and working and fixing things up. And I'll tell you what, the volunteer fire departments out here are so strong. You know, we're surrounded by 6 or 7 of them, and I can't say enough about them. They just really worked hard, and they stayed positive. And one of them told me something. One of the guys, he actually interns here, and he works here, and he runs the ranch when I'm on the road speaking. And he just said, you know, you go up to some of these ranches, and if the people are not, you can't be in a good mood, but you can be in a positive mood. You can be in a winner's mindset mind. But people that are that way, that are thinking, we're going to be on the offensive, we're going to get through this, they just seem to do better, health-wise, ranch-wise, their livestock. The people who were down saying, oh, we're not going to make it, or make it about them, and that we're a little bit more depressed, had a lot harder time. And I just, you know, I think that's the way it is with everybody day to day. You know, whether you're going through a winter storm in the middle of a pandemic on top of it, or whether, you know, whatever it is.
And the pandemic,
that mindset. And I think that helped us out. But they were great. The electric companies, we had electric companies from Florida, South Texas were up here helping, and that was great to see. Yeah, it was wonderful to see it. And
how'd you know they were from there? Did they have trucks or something?
They had trucks all over the county, and you know, we'd pull them over. Or when they were pulled over, you know, we didn't want to slow them down, but we definitely wanted just to roll down our window and say thank you. And that's what we did, and see if they needed something to drink, and let them do their job. Not slow them down because they're helping other people, but let them know it's appreciated to come all this way to help. And I thought that was really cool how they did jump in. and town was amazing. Ran out of gaseline, ran out of propane.
Which town? What's the town? Tell me.
Fredericksburg, and some of the other towns around here, just because the normal usage, trucks couldn't get to town. And then the people that were in town that needed propane, there wasn't enough, or gas. And not to any of the store owners' fault, it was a crisis deal, and we just all had to pull together. It was kind of funny after the fact because, I'm looking at my place and I have stuff that other people gave me, or they brought me or something over the fence and I gave them, and we're all scattered kind of far apart. But, there was no keeping tabs on what anyone did, or whose chainsaw, or whose gasoline, or whose bottled water. It was just, we all help each other, and that's a big part of the community we live in. And that kind of helps us, a lot. And, like you said, we had to cancel some of our Cowboy Entrepreneur shows we were going to do, and I was going to be on this podcast, and I was really looking forward to it, and
oh yeah, you were going to be on a radio yeah,
and I was so excited, it was a great audience, and I gave the man our word, so this was still early in it, but day 4 we were supposed to do it. Day 3 I was thinking, how in the world can I keep my word? So I worked it out with the fire department. I was going to jump our fence and down toward the corner so I wouldn't go across the electric lines, and jump on their fire truck, go to the fire station, call in and do the show. Plus, that would be kind of cool to talk about.
I know you would have done that. I am glad that, you still had cell service, so we were in touch, and I could kind of reorganize that for you a little bit. It worked out great.
Absolutely.
They ended up with 2 great interviews on Equestrian Legacy Radio. You can hear Scott on that too. Gary Holton, you had a fabulous interview, and I know you've got a new friend there, but you've always inspired people with your positive words. But having to live it through it, something like this, and actually sharing the experience is a big deal. So, well, thank you for letting me be the question person today.
Absolutely. You did great. I'm telling you what, I appreciate you making it so easy for me. And growing up in this Western lifestyle, you don't ever talk about, struggles or how you had to fight through it. But I think it's important for people to know in case, God forbid it happens to them one day, and they know if I can do it, they sure can do it. And, that's kind of the message. It's important to know that your neighbors, to have a plan and do 20% more of whatever plan you have right now, because you just never know. And that's what we did for sure.
But even, knowing you, Scott, it's been a while now. You're resourceful. And I think that that's it too. It's not that, there may not be a way for something, but you'll come up with a solution. And I think that's what's really important, and that's something that people really benefit when they hear you talk about these things, like you have today and on some of your other experiences. It turns on a light. It's like, oh, I never thought of looking at things that way, and that's what's important. So,
thank you. Well,
anyways, it's a delight working with you, and I'm so glad you're back in the studio.
Oh, it's so much fun, and it's funny, man. When you're trapped for 8 days, you can't leave. It's a different way, and it's survivable. And I'll tell you one quick story is on day 6, we knew the weather was supposed to get warmer. And not from cell phones, but we knew the weather forecast way back. I took a print screen. I had it on my phone. I looked and said, tomorrow it's supposed to be 32. It might warm up a little bit. So we got shovels, and we put all this snow in the water troughs. And we were thinking, if it gets to 32, maybe some will melt and that'll be water. And I'll be dang if another front didn't come through, and it turned it into icebergs in each one. And I had a pear burner, which is a propane tank. It's called a pear burner. And it's the coolest tool I think I have, because it's a propane tank. It has a hose. It runs on propane, and a long silver bar coming out, and it shoots fire.
Oh, gosh.
And you burn cactus with it. It's what it's called, a pear burner. So I was going to melt the outsides of those metal water troughs. I already had ice and snow in it. That'd be perfect. It was so cold, the propane nozzles broke. So we had to go to another plant after that. But you just keep running into roadblocks, but you got to keep going until you find that opening, and that's what's going to get you through the day. So
what'd you do? Don't leave us hanging.
So we built a fire on our red granite, which is where we park our cars and our trucks down there at the barn. It's red granite. It's like crushed limestone. and we built a fire. Actually, another guy did. We built this fire, and we put a pot. We melted ice, and we used that to water the horses at the end. So we got a picture of that too. I'll send you. But we just kept innovating until something worked. So.
Well, you got to post that on your social media too.
I need to. I sure will.
I know as soon as you get the rest of these tree limbs that are hanging around your house down and everything else taken care of, but people will appreciate that, and I know especially with you got people around the world following you, and they're going to find this an interesting story, and it certainly will make winter days a little more cheerful, or any day, I think, if they're having a bad day, to kind of see that smile on your face.
Absolutely. They can watch, say, well, why didn't he do this? And it was like, I've never been through anything. We learned just from falling down and hitting our head. We figured that didn't work, so we're going to try something else. And the horses are better, and they got a little scratched. And like we were talking earlier, our breeding program, we do a lot of live cover with our mares and our stud, and we still haven't put them together yet, just because the weather messed everything up. And we got horses where they don't belong. But
where did you put? By the way, where was your stud? He's the quarter horse, right?
Yes. Yeah.
His name. What's his name again?
His is Jazz Buenos Noches, and he was in the barn. But it was amazing. The snow was so sideways in the ice. It blew in the barn. It blew in the hay barn. It was everywhere. And I've never seen that before. Even with a good rainstorm, it's never done that. So. We all got challenged, but we made it through.
Well, good luck with breeding season.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth, and thank you for running the show today, and thanks for the questions. I hope some people watch this show today and just have fun and kind of laugh at some of the stories and maybe get a little bit more prepared. And for sure we are. We got our plan. We're going to go get some stuff, and we're going to be set for the next one. So even if it doesn't happen to us, my daughter's going to be set up 50 years from now when it's her turn. But thank you so much, Elizabeth, for everything you do for us, and also for running the show today.
Oh, my pleasure.
All right.
Thank you to all the great sponsors of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. For more information about today's guest, Piper Klumm, please visit her website, piper-klumm.com.